Matt, my friend, welcome to the show.
Hi, Gavin. How are
Welcome
you?
to the party. Welcome to the
This
world
is
of
the party.
Reveel'd. Yes. All right. We're going to do the fancy intro and then we'll talk.
Okay.
Now, full disclosure to the audience, I've known Matt for a good decade-ish.
Yeah, probably a
somewhere in
little
that
over,
time
I would
period,
imagine.
maybe a little over a decade. And your film shares a mutual love affair with me, which is the musician Gavin Slate, who does your opening credits in the film, and an artist who is a dear friend of both of ours, and I have had the pleasure of directing several music videos for. So
You have.
that's the small worldness of it all. And
It really is.
did
It
we
really is.
meet? Did we meet
think
through Gavin Slate, through his
I
music?
think possibly you had done the one you shot in Toronto. What was that? Life of a Salesman.
Yes.
The extended version where you guys did the Starbucks thing or whatever.
Yeah.
And anyway, I guess I'd gone on maybe his page or something, or I sent him a message going like, "Hey, I saw that video that you and Booth did together." I said I thought it was awesome. And he was like, "Hey, thanks, man." And we just started talking about music because the soundtrack to the film that's on Reveel'd, Potential Inertia.
Well, let's just back up a step.
Okay.
Name of the film, what's it about in your own words?
I'll give you the canned response to this because a lot of people try to get into like too much when they. So it's a guy. It's called Potential Inertia. It was released in 2014. And we did that through two now defunct companies online. So I mean, we don't even really have to get into that. But they did get released.
All that matters is the path forward, and we'll get.
It did get released worldwide via two companies online, and so. It's about a guy who's graduating college, which is a pretty unsure time for everybody in their lives. And he's in the process of going through loss like he's never known before. And the gist of the story, I guess, is through that difficult, transition that you have, dealing with the loss that you've never quite experienced before on multiple fronts, whether or not you can actually persevere through that, or with the help of the people that are around you and the relationships that you've made, or whether or not you let that get the best of you and kind of give up, I guess. It's a pretty basic coming of age story, but I think it's pretty universal to all of us because we always have things that come into our lives that are unexpected obstacles. And I think it speaks to everybody in the sense that we can all relate to it.
Since creating this film, you also curate a film festival.
I do.
So, you're an interesting breed because you are a filmmaker and a programmer. So having created your own film and now taking that toe into that side of the film world, being a programmer, what do you appreciate more about what you had done with your very first film? When you watch all these other first-time filmmakers submitting their things, is there anything that stands out about your experience making Potential Inertia?
Well, the funny thing is now the cameras are so much better. We obviously had some obstacles when we shot ours because we started shooting in 2012 and released in December of 2014. And so for me, looking back, I think we made the best movie we could at the time with the budget that we had. And I think that's all you can really ask of yourself when you're making a movie. It did get into a couple of film festivals, one in Italy that ultimately got canceled, which really sucks because I would have loved to have seen how the film played to an Italian audience, to a European audience, as compared to like in a theater, as compared to just an American audience, because European audiences tend to have a different filmic sense or appreciation, maybe, I guess, than a lot of American audiences do. And I don't mean that to slight American audiences in any way. I just think that the art form itself has been around longer in those regions. And it would have been really cool to see, my
listen, I don't want to toot our own horn here at Reveel'd. Where let me point upwards, right there.
Right up.
You have a global audience currently.
Yes,
So
which is
arguably
really,
you
really
have
nice.
some Italians and some Europeans watching the film.
So
What
if you're out there
yeah.
watching it and you're around the globe, you please go ahead and get on Twitter and tweet me if you watch the film and let me know what you think about it, because I would love to hear how people think about it, or how it makes them feel from all over the planet. Like, just,
This is an
I
interesting
love that.
time that an old film can find life on a platform like Reveal, where because I think that's the interesting thing about indie film is you can continue to find a new audience slowly but surely over a long
Most
period of
definitely, yeah,
time.
yeah,
We're all used to the very Hollywood system of big movie opens, we're advertising, we're pushing down our throat. They get the big opening weekend, it comes out on VOD or DVD, and then it hits a
precisely,
major
yeah.
streaming platform, blah blah blah, and then that's sort of it. The film is forgotten. But indie film, what I've learned through my own films and friends is like, yeah, there's just this constantly new ways to put the film out there, new ways to show it to an audience.
Right,
So
and you and I both
yeah.
understand. I think this is something you and I may have talked about before too. The films that we do ourselves outside of any kind of studio system,
Mm-hmm.
they're always going to be our babies. We've made them, we've taken the time and the love and care to put them out into the world. Um, and because we don't have that backing of maybe a studio system, these
Yeah.
are things that we've made that are very personal to us, and we have to nurture them for the rest of our careers, whether or not it's a movie we made 20 years ago or a movie we're going to make
Yep.
20 years from now. um, we have to stick with it, and we have to make sure that our stories are heard, because we don't have anybody else to push those stories.
So circling back to music, any good coming of age story, be it comedy, drama, everything from The Big Chill to Forrest Gump to Can't Hardly Wait, they soundtrack and music is very important to those films.
Yes.
And no different with yours, the difference being a fiercely independent budgeted film,
Right.
you had to fight a little harder and have some relationships with artists like Gavin Slate to find the right music. How did you go about securing music for your film?
Well, it was pretty interesting. I actually put out a call, um, just as you would an open casting
Hmm.
call, for for bands or musicians that would possibly, be willing to let me use their music in the
Yeah.
movie. And I, obviously gave them a brief rundown of what the film was about. Um, and so they kind of had an idea of maybe what songs they had recorded that would possibly fit maybe the storyline a little bit better than other songs that they had. Uh, I had the film scored professionally, by uh, one of my old college professors, Brent Register, and he was willing to just take the extra time to. Oh, I got a bug in my face. Uh,
Live TV, my friend,
you
live
gotta
TV.
you gotta love it. Yeah,
We're all for
I
the
got the
bug.
lights
Yeah.
going
It
and
costs
everything.
too
So
much to put them in CGI afterwards, so we just
right,
roll with
yeah.
it.
So Brent was like, "Look, I'll take the time to do this." And so I sent him the script, and he read the script, and he really enjoyed the script. And the script is way older than the film in itself actually is, um, which is a story for another day. But Brent said, "Yeah, this is something I've never done before. I really want to try it." And he can play every instrument. He's an amazing composer and an amazing music professor at Clarion University. And he sat down and orchestrated. There's an entire orchestral suite that I cut together of Brent's music for the film, which was really nice. And it was crazy because, like, really fun thing about music in movies is the directors, you have to find a way to work well with the composers on their films, and it's such a weird thing, because I never thought that I would have to do something like that, quite like that, on my first movie. And there'd be times at night at like 2 in the morning, I'd be editing a scene, and I would email him, and he wouldn't get the email till the morning, and then I'd get something that, the following evening or
Mhm.
whatever, of just like, "Hey man, can you give me 30 seconds of like melancholy?" Or but he had this thematic um cohesiveness to where he wanted to go with the score itself. And so everything matched up pretty well. And he pretty much, I think I only ever had to like tell him to like pull back on something like maybe one time during the entire post-production process, which was pretty amazing.
Why the choice for black and white?
This was actually a conscious choice. That's a really good question. Well,
I'm a filmmaker. I notice these things when I
right.
watch.
My movie is a very talky movie.
Mhm.
It's kind of like I grew up in the Kevin Smith era, as did you, and those are the movies a lot of times that we fell in love with. And when I started really writing more, those kinds of screenwriters were the ones that influenced me the most. And so that came out in thinking about how I would want to visually, I guess, focus more on the dialogue without being distracted visually by color or anything like that. I decided I'd just go monochromatic with it and drop the color out of it, and just so people are more focused on what's being said instead of what's being seen around them.
Well, it's a different time for cinema too, where you didn't have the ability to shoot in RAW yet, so
Right.
your color grading options were more limited too.
Extremely
So
limited.
you had to make aesthetic choices like black and white versus color, or the type of saturation or filtering you were going to do on your film on set versus in post. You were a little more limited. So I've always enjoyed that. Some of the best indie films, you reference Clerks. I think of one with Scoop McNairy that the title is failing me right now, but yeah, over the years I've seen many that indie films that have been shot in black and white, and they say it's distracting to some audiences, but I mean, how can you say that when some of the greatest films of all time are in black and white?
This year, I guess there's quite a few studio films that are coming out. At least 4 or 5, I think, that I know of that have opted to go with black and white. And it kind of surprised me. I was reading an article about that just like 2 days ago, and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of really great that they're actually just kind of going back to it again."
It used to be a bit of a kiss of death to the box office, and it meant less ticket sales. But
Right.
I really do believe we live in the wild west of content. Reveal, for example, you go and Reveal, it's not one type of film, it's not one type of
which is
series. It's
amazing.
just an absolute onslaught of variety. And it's about giving audiences the maximum amount of choice, and not necessarily having to target every single project at your entire audience like a television network would be. We have the freedom to kind of go after a more niche audience. So shooting something in black and white, for example, there's a huge audience out there that you don't have to cater to the traditional rules of releasing a film. So I commend you on that. So
Thank you.
You shot this roughly 9 years ago, roughly a decade ago,
2012 to 2014. Yeah.
So roughly a decade. And you piece it together over a 2-year period versus the traditional small shoot. What's the biggest life lesson that having made a feature film has given you that you've carried forward? What did it teach you the most in life?
Well, because we did it in such a non-traditional way, of people, actors, sticking with you for the entire time for the 2.5 years instead of just giving you 3 or 4 months. The thing that I learned most, I guess, and especially you can just translate over to life experience outside of any kind of creative endeavor, just in your basic everyday life, is the people that you find your tribe. Pretty much find the people that want to let you say and do the things that you want to say and do, and vice versa. That you want to be creative with, that you respect and listen to and can incorporate in your life in a productive way, as opposed to those people who may be just there, oh, just because I'm making a movie, or maybe you just got a raise, or your tribe, regardless of whether they're family or not, that creative family that you can find and put together, those people are going to be more than willing to stick with you from project to project. They're going to help more. They're going to be there more. And ultimately, they turn into your friends, these lifelong friends that you have. But I think that's the most important thing I learned from making the film is you're going to have a lot of detractors and haters. And you probably know this as well as I do. That people who don't get to do what they want to do are going to be mad a lot of times if you are pursuing something that you want to do, and you can't listen to those people. And you need to keep the people, your tribe around you, because those are the people that are going to push you. Those are the people that are going to have your back and kind of support you emotionally through any kind of hardships or endeavors that you may run into along your creative path.
So independent filmmakers need friends that are as good as therapists, but cheaper than therapy.
That is so correct. Yeah.
So final question, one last question. Your lead character in the film, remind me the name again.
Matthew King. Yeah. His name in the film was Declan.
Declan. So Declan, interesting. I have a script sitting on my desk where the Declan is the lead character. Declan, he's finishing college when this movie happens. He's going through what he's going through. Where is Declan today? And what is the experience of his journey through the film? Where if we picked up with a like Before Sunset style 10-year later sequel, where would he be right now?
Right. Do you remember? You're going to laugh at this because we're going to show our age here. Do you remember?
I'm 23.
Do you remember
it just keeps happening.
Right. Do you remember the last season of Dawson's Creek?
Do I ever? Yeah.
Right. So Dawson Leary, he's working for some studio somewhere, and directing something. I can see maybe Declan in that kind of a headspace, or maybe not. Maybe maybe this was whatever he went through here was enough to push him to selling cars, or no, and nothing wrong with selling cars. Nope. I'm just saying we don't always see.
You bought a car. We all buy cars.
We don't always see the path that's ahead of us. So I mean, it's hard to say because there are so many twists and turns in life. But where I would probably want to see him writing a novel. Because it's what he's done in the film is he's written a screenplay, and so he's obviously a writer. He's an emotional guy. He needs to get stuff out on paper, probably like me, and so I'd probably want to see him writing a novel today. I'm gonna go with that answer.
Well, there you go. For folks in the audience that haven't watched the film Potential Inertia, it's on Reveel'd. And if you're watching this interview first, the movie now acts as a prequel to this little summary we got of where his life goes. So Matt, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Gavin.
My friend.
Yeah, we'll have to get together for coffee.
One of these
via the interwebs.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.